Hello, hello. Thank you for tuning in to Sis Let's Talk Leadership. My name is Christy Burns,
And I'm Melissa Walsh.
and this is where we unmask the myths.
And we own the journey.
Yes, and so today we have an amazing guest with us, someone who is dear to my heart, and that is Miss Pretrevis Ellison. And today's topic is going to be grace in leadership. And so before we get started with this amazing discussion, let's let Miss Pretrevis introduce herself.
Okay, thank you, ladies, for having me on the podcast. I feel famous now. Okay, but so my name is Pretrevis Ellison, and I go by the Friendly Educator. I'm a respiratory therapist. I have 20 years of experience from all aspects of respiratory, from NICU to adult critical care, and currently working in my passion, which
Mm.
is education and mentorship. So thanks for having me.
And I love the fact that you said passion because you are definitely passionate and it shows through your work. So, I know that we've all been in situations to where we've either had to be empathetic, we've had to show grace, we've had to leverage grace and accountability. So, I just want to know, what does grace mean to you, or what does grace look like, especially when it comes to leadership or maybe any positions that are held in leadership?
Well, basically, to me, grace is like being able to allow someone to be human. Like you can see their flaws, but you can also see the effort.
Mhm,
So it's not focusing so much on the person's behavior, but allowing them to make mistakes and learn from it.
mhm. No, that makes perfect sense. So, Melissa, what is grace for you? Because I like have this whole analogy that I use for grace, but what is yours?
I think for me is being able to truly see the person. I
Mhm,
think a lot of times when we talk about grace, we focus on all of these details like of who they are, what they do on a daily basis, but it's really looking at removing a lot of the feelings, especially biased feelings about people, and
mhm,
looking at the person and their situation and how you help, how you support, how you help them carry over to whatever situation they're going through. But
mhm,
I'm going to quote Pretrevis because she said this previously and I wrote it down because I
mhm,
thought it was so impactful and I hope you talk about it again. But
mhm,
you said that you felt that grace was strength wrapped in compassion. And
mm,
after
Mhm.
Christy shares her analogy, I would love to hear more about when you said that and where
mhm,
you came up with that. And I also want to talk about your self affirming statement of you go by the friendly educator, because I
mm.
like that a lot.
Yeah, that's really good. It is. It is. So, grace for me is basically a reminder that we're all trying to be something, we're all becoming, but no one has really
Mhm.
arrived. So,
Yeah.
you may not be there, but you're in the process of getting to where it is that you want to be. And often grace leads to but let's get to Pretrevis and basically, like Melissa said, for the friendly educator, how did you come up with that? And what does strength and rapid compassion mean? Like how, because that is
Awesome.
so rich.
That's a sticker.
It is.
Well, thanks. So to me, it's like when you show grace, when you extend grace to others,
Mhm,
it's not being weak. It's not a sign of
Mhm.
weakness. It's a sign of strength
mhm,
because you are allowing yourself to be vulnerable. You're allowing yourself to make mistakes and seek forgiveness from it, and growing from that. And that takes compassion.
mhm,
So just basically exactly, what it said is just being graceful, is having the strength and being compassionate about it and not seeing it as a weakness. Because sometimes when you are extending grace,
mhm,
there's a fine line that people sometimes it can get blurred
mhm,
where you extend too much grace and then you end up
Mhm.
enabling, certain behaviors because you forgave it.
mhm,
Grace basically like gives another chance,
mhm.
but having that accountability to meet those standards and the expectations still allows you to grow from it.
Do you
Mm,
feel like that strength comes from a place of confidence too? Like, because when I think about people that give so much grace, I think of people that are so authentically themselves and they're very comfortable being themselves, where it
mhm,
almost kind of like it's an outpouring of, and Christy, you have said this, like
mhm,
where you now lead from a place of knowing yourself instead of proving yourself
mhm.
in your, because you've had some really amazing experience as a leader, as an educator, Pretrevis, do you feel like that's something that you've always done? Do you feel like it was just innate to your personality, or is that something that you've worked to develop and strengthen over time?
Uh, yes and no. I think it's a unique blend, you know. For me, I do work and I'm intentional about being graceful, and that can show up in different ways. One of the things that truly stands out to me that I've worked on and for years, and even more so in my role as an educator, is like in how I give feedback,
Mm,
to others and making sure that like the end result, like they should feel capable or empowered after I give feedback
Yeah.
versus feeling defeated,
Mhm,
So I'm intentional about what I say and the delivery. Like I know exactly what needs to be said when I'm correcting or redirecting,
mhm,
but how I say it is equally important. So I've had to really be intentional
mhm,
on that, creating that, we say psychologically safe, but
mm,
it's like two sides of the same coin, you
mm,
know? And with that, creating that environment where people feel safe to speak up. I haven't always been the easiest person to talk to. Even recently, I'm still growing in this because my son had something that he wanted to talk to me about. And we ended up having a conversation and he was just had a sigh of relief and he was like afterwards, and he was like, oh, so glad I got that off my chest. I've been worried for days about how you would react. And then so I paused in that moment. I was like, I want to be where you always can feel like you can come and talk to me about it. I'm sorry if I reacted previously in, a way that gave you some apprehension to have a conversation with me.
mhm,
Um, I was extended grace to myself in that I've grown
mhm,
because I didn't react the way that I used to,
mhm.
with that situation. And I let him know that it's okay. I've made mistakes and this is where we're going to go from here. And I'll be here to support you through, what he's going through.
Yeah.
So it's a continuous process, both in my personal and professional life.
Yeah. And so, like, I can say this because I personally had the privilege of currently working with you, but I've worked with you in the past as well. And so, what I noticed that you are very good at doing when it comes to grace is not dampening or making people feel spiritually low. So, you do very well with meeting them where they are, seeing where the hiccups are, basically meeting the need sometimes before they even speak up and see it. And then when you find out what it is, you jump in it with them. So you're automatically trying to figure out what the solution is, how to make it better. And I think that that's super important as an individual, but especially as a leader with building those relationships and making people feel comfortable, which goes right back to that psychological safety that you mentioned before. With that being said, like, do you feel that it's easy or is it tough? Or how does it work when you have to balance grace and still maintain accountability, whether it's personally or professionally? Like, what does that look like?
Well, I try to extend grace without lowering the standard,
Mhm.
you know, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So I am very clear about what the expectations are. Like I don't change from that.
Mhm.
But again, how I communicate that
Mhm.
is what's most important. I
Mhm.
want the person to speak up. I ask, open ended questions. And instead of saying things like, say, for example, I might say, if I'm with a new therapist and we're going to rounds, and instead of saying to them, hey, when you get to rounds, you have to speak up,
Mhm.
I'll help prepare them and say, during rounds, it is the expectation that we contribute. as
Mhm.
part of, important part of the interdisciplinary team.
Mhm.
So let's get prepared for this. Let's look at what our plan is for the patient today. If we did a SBT trial, what those results were, and so that because they're prepared and they know what to expect,
Mhm.
when they get ready to speak up during rounds, they feel better. So they know that it's the expectation,
Yeah.
but I kind of walk them through that process.
So you
If
lead
that
the way.
situation makes sense.
Yeah, you lead the way, and then they're able to see by example based off of what you do. I wanted to bring this up as well because we both had the opportunity to go to, I guess you can call it an event, but it was an event where multiple hospitals were there and we were all there to basically not necessarily recruit for students, but to kind of talk about what's going well in the clinical setting when they come to the hospitals and what is not going well. And then we kind of ended with speaking to the students and then letting them know like, hey, the hiring time is now and so forth, right? So I had
Mhm.
the opportunity to speak with a group of students, and I would say it was maybe about 8 of them that were surrounding me. And I was asking questions already been at with their clinical, it already came to our facility. And the first thing that the one said that had came to our facility was, we love that place there. We love that place there. And the main thing that we love about that place is the clinical educator. And I was like, "What? Okay, that's amazing." And so then after they stated that, the other students who haven't been to our facility said, "You know what? We heard so many great things about your place. We wanna come over there." And I was like, "See, that's what I'm talking about." So I think that with that grace, comes also, trust. There comes impact, there comes influence, and I know personally from the
Mhm.
relationship that Previous and I have, those are specific things that we pray for. And so
Mm.
we can say, not only today, but on multiple accounts, that we have seen those different things come into action or being reciprocated, or even hearing the feedback from other people based off of grace and other things that have been shown to other, and that we stood out spirit of Pretrevis, which is, I mean, you can't really get any better than that. So,
But thank you, Krista. That's really nice. But like what I do with I'm a very friendly person anyway, and this kind of gets around to what Melissa was asking about how I branded myself as a friendly educator.
mhm,
Part of my personality is just a very friendly person. Like I don't meet strangers, I talk and um, just really try to get to know people
mhm,
and get them to open up. And but one thing that I'm really intentional about with it. Like I realize the influence that I have in this position,
mhm,
and I don't take that lightly.
mhm,
I wouldn't be effective without the leadership team as well,
mm,
because it's not a single job.
mhm,
Even though I'm really nice, that's only part of it. And we still have the preceptors, which is the majority of the staff. We still have the leadership team, so everyone contributes to that culture. But with me being like the front line and the first face that they
mhm,
see and the first person that they truly interact with, I thank God for that. So I intentionally, no matter what I have going on personally, how I feel, I try to meet that person where they are and use more of like situational leadership.
mhm,
And I listen, I understand where they are. Like you're coming into an environment, you're still a student or a new hire, you really don't know what to expect. And most people, they are hoping that everyone is nice.
mhm.
That's some of the feedback that I get. I hope everyone is nice because no one wants to go somewhere where they'll be mistreated.
Yeah.
So I make sure that I'm nice. And then I know that they have fear, different things. So I try to, talk, find out little things about them, and then continue to build upon that.
Yeah.
But a friend is someone that you can trust, you can depend on, you can be yourself with.
Mhm,
And that's how I want anyone who interacts with me to feel like
mhm,
I'm their friend. They can depend on me and they can.
mhm,
If they need me, I'm going to be there. I'm going to help guide you in the right direction. I'll protect you the best that I can. So that's kind of just someone who can walk on that journey with you. With
mhm,
whatever your journey is looking like, wherever direction you're going, I'll be there with you,
mhm.
along that. So that's how I came to brand myself as a friendly educator.
Pretrevis, I love how you truly depict the epitome of what an educator is for
Mm, mhm,
respiratory. And I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine today about how
mhm,
there's no formal training for RTs to go into the type of role you are in. And there's so much that goes into it. It's not just the adult learning aspect of it, like learning those
mhm,
strategies, learning
mhm,
the right way to teach them to make sure that there's competence, but it's also you're talking so much about the emotional intelligence that you're required to have to
Mm,
create that space for
definitely.
your team members to come to you. There's such a big difference between saying there's no dumb questions
mhm,
and then
mm,
they ask a question and the reaction, right? And I love that you talked about that you worked really hard on how you react to things
mhm,
and how they come back. And they're like, and I'm sure you get this all the time. At least I would feel comfortable asking you like any sort of question that you might think that I might know the answer. Be like, hey, can you tell me about this? Because I don't really know. And I think that you're creating such a beautiful space for people to feel comfortable asking questions and prioritizing the care and the quality of the patient that they're giving. And it goes back to your comment about you are not giving grace and compromising quality,
mm,
integrity, or values. You're
Mhm,
giving grace to highlight and to kind of almost lift that up as a priority. Like, hey, I'm giving you grace because I want you to practice at a higher level of quality, because I want you to have integrity. And if you make a mistake, I want you to tell me so I can teach you how to do it better next time so that
mhm,
doesn't happen again. And so that you stand up for the mission and vision of whatever it is that we're doing here for the
mhm,
care that we're providing, or even the example with your son, right? Like you're telling him like, "No, I want you to tell me. I want to be
mhm.
an active participant in your life. I want to be
Absolutely.
somebody that I have vested interest in you. I want
Mhm,
you to do well and I want you to come to me regardless of
mhm.
how you may feel." And he did. Like even if he had any ounce of apprehension, he still did.
mhm,
Yeah.
But I think it's so great that you're really talking about what it takes to be an educator, because you get two classes of people often. Anybody could be
Mhm.
an educator. Not true.
Yeah.
that is
Or people that, yeah, like they'll step into the role and then they quickly realize it's not that easy because you have influence without power.
mhm,
Mm. Yep, that's
And that's hard. And that's
mm,
hard. I love the partnership and collaboration that you and Christy have. And I've shared with you before, Christy speaks very highly of you. And she has a lot of respect for everything you do. She understands as a leader the importance of having that partnership and that
mhm,
mutual respect, because she knows you have influence and
mhm,
she holds the power to the
mm.
influence that you have. And that's
mhm.
such a synergetic type of relationship. But can you tell us more about when you made that transition? Because I think that that's something that a lot of people that may be interested in clinical education, which, by the way, I know that you are presenting soon at one of the AARC about the new grad residency and stuff like that. But yes, I know she's getting out there, you guys. She's working on some
I
great
know.
stuff. I
That's
can't wait.
right.
I can't wait for y'all to
Great
find out what
things.
she's all about.
Yeah.
But what helped you through that transition of being a clinician, a very strong clinician, to now being an educator and pouring your passion into others?
I mean, for experience for one, just going through different things. And
Mhm,
as I said, I mean, it's like 20 years. I started working as a respiratory tech, like a student therapist, and then working in different states,
mhm,
different hospitals, different areas. And some of the places that I went required me to be a different type of therapist.
mm,
Like the care remained the same, but then, culturally, some places were different. Like, say, in Atlanta, when I came to Atlanta initially, I was in culture shock, with all the different cultures that was there and the different patient, like the demographics of the patient. So, I mean, they're all humans and, physiologically, the respiratory care is the same, but I still had to approach the patients in different ways. I was in San Diego, California, and it was completely Spanish speaking. So I had to learn how to learn a little Spanish
mhm,
Yeah.
and
See?
work there. I worked in Pennsylvania and a hospital, and I was the only African American, in the NICU there. So it required different versions of myself, but I
mhm,
still excelled everywhere that I went because I was willing to adapt. I
Mhm.
was willing to, you
Ah.
know, create and expound on these different relationships,
Mhm.
and learn from those around me. So because I was open to learn and didn't isolate myself, I learned a lot of different things that I've carried on and I can share that with other people.
Mhm.
But in order to learn, I had to listen,
Yeah.
and then so that's what I do with the whether it's therapists or students or whoever. I listen to what they say and I listen to what they don't say,
Mhm.
because that silence can get real loud
Mhm.
sometimes. And I typically I like to read the room. I talk a lot, but then I'm always observing.
Mhm.
So when I see someone kind of laid back and they're kind of quiet and not really speaking up, I'll try to navigate toward that person and see, is it just their personality, or are they going through a tough time? Like, how can I help them so that they can realize the importance of their voice also? you
Mhm.
know. And one thing I started doing with some of the students or new therapists, like I had this situation and I really liked the outcome of it, but I was talking to her and she was saying, like, I'm just having all these feelings. And she was upset and she was crying. And so I said, okay, let's take a breath and let's just sit down and talk for a minute.
Mhm.
I prayed with her and then I said, I believe there's power in your words. So I want you to say the opposite of whatever you're feeling.
Mhm.
So she started to say, like, I am strong, I am capable, I'm a good therapist, I can handle this. So that told me, and she never once said to me that she felt afraid or she didn't feel capable. So when she said those different things, I am, you know, with those words, I knew then as an educator what I needed to do to support her,
Mhm.
more to be there for her at the bedside, to
Yeah.
just, give her more attention and kind of, she still needed a little more guidance,
Mhm.
so I listen to what they say and what they don't say
So
and
you mean
use things from my experience to do
you
better.
mean to say that being an educator is so much more than teaching technical skills?
Absolutely.
Yes. And that's where they
Absolutely.
miss the mark, right? Like, people just see like, "Oh, the educator educates on the technical skills that you
Yeah,
have
they
to
do
perform."
competency, they do
Yeah.
it's always
We're
Yeah.
building confidence.
yeah,
We're doing
secret in that.
all kind of things, and I love to look at them and, like when they're in the units and maybe they're just did their first vent shift by themselves, or they, just got off orientation there in the ICU. I'm like, look at you being a registered respiratory therapist. She
She says that, and
I
when we
do it all
round
the time.
together, she goes around and says, "How are you
Yeah.
doing, you amazing respiratory therapist?"
Yeah.
And,
'Cause
that
I
piggybacks to
like
what she said too about she titles herself as the friendly educator, but she also
yeah.
titles the therapist and speaks it because, as she said, their words have power.
Mhm.
She told that
Yeah.
therapist the other
Mhm.
day, like,
Mhm.
words have power, and I don't know if she realized she said this one other time, but we were in an advanced critical care course, and someone actually asked her the same thing that you said, Melissa, is, "Why do you have friendly educator? I think that's amazing. I'm gonna"
Mhm.
she was like, "Well, it's
Mhm.
the same way that I call the supervisor the amazing supervisor, where I speak to the
Mhm.
therapist and say the amazing," and she was like, your words have power, and so when you
Mhm.
say things, this is what you strive to be." And
Mhm.
so you put it out there and then you
Yeah.
work towards it. And then eventually you become that 2.0 person. And I call it the
Mhm.
2.0 because whoever that person that you're striving to be is usually the 2.0. So when you go through those challenges or those situations, you tap into that and eventually you become just that of what you're aspiring to be. So that goes with her putting those titles and labels on things, and it
Mhm.
term building confidence, encouraging people, inspiring individuals, and we can literally see the fruits of the labor that she has put into educating those therapists. And so it's amazing to watch. So I'm just glad to have a seat at the what do they call it? A seat at the table. I'm just glad to be able
At the
to see
table.
that to
Yeah.
be yeah.
I think that's great, especially for new grads, as we think there's so many. I know that 3 of us are part of, like, NBRC ambassador type of stuff, and we start thinking
Mhm.
about growing the next generation, and I think it's very intuitive of you as a leader, educator to read the room read the body language of each of your RTs and really individualize your care for them because your care goes far beyond just teaching them something. It truly is I care about your success, and you're
Yeah.
not you're living it through
Mhm.
rounding, through checking in with them, or kind of what you mentioned. If you know something personal about them that they've shared with you, you follow up like, "Hey, how did this work out? How are you doing with this?" Or if they confide in you that they're struggling with something and it's causing them to have fear and it's impacting their confidence as they're growing, I think it's something that is not spoken enough. The
Mhm.
level of influence that you have as an educator and again, like, I can't thank you enough for sharing that it is so much deeper
It
than
is.
just education.
Yep. It goes further. So, since you mentioned you actually prayed with a therapist and you asked her to
Mhm.
speak the opposite of whatever she was being told, more than likely from a spiritual standpoint, and I feel like I can say this because we're all spiritual individuals. The person who was probably telling her those negative things that she had to speak opposite of was, the adversary. So, what spiritual practices, if you have any, help you reset and refill when grace feels like it's hard to give? Because I
Mhm,
feel like as leaders, it becomes difficult sometimes. And because we are spiritual individuals, we have to constantly refill our cup. And I know for me, when I tell you almost every minute of the day, I find myself trying to reach for God in some capacity, whether it's just having a silent whisper talk with Him, having the
Mhm.
scriptures on my desk, having to pull up something on my phone, Googling something. I find myself doing that more and more now than I did before, obviously, because, I'm growing my relationship with God. But what do you all have any practices that you put into place to help refill yourself?
Well, for me, yeah, I pray a lot, okay?
Mhm,
But I start every day in prayer.
mhm.
Like, before I get my phone, before I do anything, like, as soon as I open my eyes, I'm like, "Thank you, God, for
Yeah,
another day."
yeah.
You know, I'll listen to a sermon, have my little devotion. My
Mhm,
husband and I do that together.
mhm,
It's different sermons that I'll listen to on the way to work, and just feeling myself. And when I clock in for years, when I was working bedside every single day, when I clock in, I'm like, God, nothing will happen today that you and I cannot handle,
mm,
and just with that expectation that
mm,
He was going to send help and be
mhm,
there for me.
mhm,
It happened, it worked out, so it became habit, and now it's not that I've moved into nothing's gonna happen today that you and I can't handle, but
mhm.
I just get a little bit more specific,
Yeah.
and I'll ask God to allow me to be the light,
Mm,
allow me to be there for someone,
yeah.
open my spiritual eyes to
Mhm,
different things, so I still have those prayers, but just depending on what's going on, who I'm interacting with, it's more than just clocking in. It's,
yeah,
just continuous. And learning how to pause. It's a lot of wisdom and a lot of grace and things that happen when you just pause for a minute
yeah,
and don't be so quick to react.
right.
And I think that just came with getting older, maturity, emotional intelligence,
Mhm,
and just choosing your battles,
yeah,
just learning how to say, "You know what? Imma come back to that. Let's just pause for a minute. This is
or let's put a pin in
when
it,
it's
as
hand."
we would
I
say.
say, "Let's put a
Put a
pin
pin
in it,
in it.
or I can't do this right now. Like,
Yeah.
just hold on." And this is my famous hand. When this hand goes up, that's it for me. Like, I gotta stop.
Mhm.
That's it. And I know myself
Yeah,
when his hand comes up. And most people that know me know that I'm like, and it's not that I'm like, get out of my face. It's not anything like that, but it's just like, pause. Let me regroup and let's come back and revisit this later.
mhm.
So I had to grow into that.
Yeah,
And I thank God for that.
yeah. That's amazing. God is good. I mean, one thing I feel like the scripture that I feel like I have been leaning more into recently, especially when it comes to grace and even showing myself grace, which Patrice, I know you mentioned that earlier, is
Hmm.
Galatians 6:9, where it says,
Hmm.
"Let us not grow weary in doing well, for in due season we will reap a harvest if we do not give up."
Do not
So
pay. Yeah.
my obedience in this role or whatever God is leading me to,
Hmm.
is going to be rewarded if I continue to choose the right path, the right reaction, the right response, whether it's taking that pause, like you mentioned, and thinking before I actually speak and do things. And so that is
Mhm,
the right thing to do. And the reward, the blessings, whatever comes from that will come as long as I do not give up. And so
mhm.
do right. Just do right.
Another thing I wanna add, in addition to prayer, because I do pray, but sometimes, like, you have to have someone in real time that's right there when you
Mhm.
can't hear the spirit and your emotions are just all over the place and maybe louder than, what the spirit is saying to you. But having that accountability partner, whether it's a friend, you know, outside of work, it doesn't have to be someone that you work with, but
Yeah.
someone that you could call and kind of, you know let them know the situation that's going on and who can help you change your perspective,
Yeah.
on things, give you
Mhm.
a minute to calm down and, just be that person for you. So that's
Mhm.
part of the prayer. Like, I know that God will send me somebody.
Mhm.
And having a mentor, it was a physician I met some years ago, and he became my mentor, and he's helped me through so much. And I would, like, even when it came to certain situations that would happen in the ICU and I would want to respond like I'm just like walking fast and I'm ready to go, you know, check whatever situation, that's going on.
Yeah.
And he just be like, "Where are you going? Like, just
Oh,
slow
yeah.
down for a minute,
Yeah.
just sit with yourself for a minute,
Mhm.
write down what you want to say, and just stopping to do that. I know it sounds crazy, but like, man, I used to have that notepad full. And he was like, all right, now ball it up and throw that away and go back over to the other side of that unit because you're not doing that in here.
Yeah.
You can't say that, but that accountability and having someone to just stop me from sabotaging myself
Yeah.
and reacting
Mhm.
emotionally and
Yeah.
thinking through things made a difference. And just like writing it out. So then I learned to start sending emails, but reading them first,
Mm.
or allowing someone else to read them. So
Mhm.
it's not like just full of emotion.
Yeah.
You can actually just stick to the facts. So I had to have a mentor as well
So
that's
having
not
that.
afraid to tell you about yourself. You know,
Mhm. And you know
that's
what's good? What
important.
I'm hearing too is that you're able to receive the information. So not only do you have an accountability partner, because people can tell you all day, they can try to tell you, but you have been willing to listen. And being that you have a mentor, you have mentored others in that same way. And you've also put it into practice. And I know but I definitely lean on for certain situations. And you have shared those things with me personally, and it has helped me along my journey, whether it was in leadership or even when I was a bedside therapist up until now. So I'm
Mhm,
grateful that you've learned those things because they have literally trickled down. I know for myself, and I'm pretty sure
mhm.
for all the other friends and individuals, you have in your life. So
Well,
I'm
thank you.
grateful for it. Grateful for that.
Thanks.
Do you feel like grace shows up different since we're speaking on like having accountability partners and things of that nature, that it shows up different in burnout seasons or where there's seasons of like conflict and things with the challenges that come with, our roles?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it kind of comes down to in addition to praying and having a mentor, I do like a lot of research on different things. I like to read, leadership books. And there was this article that I was reading. I think it was Zinger. It was Zinger and starts with the F. Hold on. Zinger and Folkman. All
Mhm.
right. And they were talking about like it was an article on psychological safety and it was talking about leadership and being able to unlearn,
Mhm.
some habits that you've had and how to actually invite the hard questions and lean into those difficult things instead of kind of like shutting down and backing away because that it's not always comfortable
Mhm.
and, leaders can thrive when we get in environments where it gets hard if we lean into it instead of backing away from it,
Mhm.
because that avoidance can kind of, damage the culture.
Mhm.
So having that grace and being willing to address the situation and show vulnerability, show compassion, show grace,
Mhm.
just living it out
Yeah.
is, what leads to real change.
Mm.
And once you start doing that, it gets easier. So I don't back away from a challenge. I like to lean into it, and see what I can learn from it. I'm actually enjoying now of looking at things from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Like, what did I learn from that? Or what can I do? And hearing people's perspective,
Mhm.
I invite that,
Mhm.
now. So that's the season that I'm in right now. And a lot of times it's better than a perspective that I had,
Mm.
just that mindset shift and being open to something new as far as like a perspective, a different way of looking at something. It can
Mhm.
be really refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree with you.
Pretrevis, have you ever, because you said you enjoy learning things and reading, have you ever read
Mhm.
about how buffaloes, they can smell snowstorms coming, and where
Hmm.
most animals will go in the opposite direction of the storm, buffaloes actually march into it.
Oh, wow.
They march
No,
into
I
it
didn't know
because they
that.
know that it will pass.
Mm.
So they
Yeah.
know that if they march towards it, they'll get through it faster in a
Yes.
Yeah.
sense. When you talk about just kind of the intuition that, because
Mhm.
it's a buffalo, like, what do they know? Like, I wouldn't go towards a storm and be like, I need to go get like some blankets or something. It's about to get
Yeah.
cold.
Yeah.
Get
You
me
need to
my beanie.
prepare. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you were talking about, like, you don't shy away from a challenge, that's what it made me think
Mhm.
of. My husband often teases me because I am a huge fan of resolution, and for
Mhm.
a very long time throughout my life, the feedback that I got is like, "You just like to argue." I was like, "No, I don't like to argue. You don't
Mhm.
understand. I want resolution, and if that
Yeah.
means that I have to argue with you or have a hard conversation with you about it, I will,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
get resolution, to get past
Mhm.
what is happening right now." And I was like, "But it's not that I like to argue. Like, I'm not arguing with you to win this argument. I'm arguing with you to understand what you need from me."
Mhm.
So, like,
Mhm.
Christy, when you were talking about like giving grace during hard times,
Mhm.
it's draining. Like, some days people just drain you because they think they're the only ones that are coming to you with a problem. They
Yeah.
think I'm the only one that's going to you, like, I need this time off, I need this, I need that. And then you're getting it from work, then you're getting it from home, and then you get it from yourself. Because as females, like, we go through hormonal changes all month long. So,
Mhm.
like, there is times where I know, like, I am tired.
Mhm.
I need a break. So the way that Pretrevis, you said your hand goes up, I'm like, I use both my hands. I talk with
Mm.
my hands a lot. I will do the hang on, time out, run it back because I'm not understanding and I need more information. So let me just stop doing everything I'm doing, one thing at a time. Run it back. What are you asking from me?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I like do this and they, my kids, my husband, my team, they make fun of me. They're like, "This is what I need." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, thank you. But help me understand because I really I have nothing more to give."
Mhm.
Mhm.
One of my pet peeves, I hate apps on my phone. And
Mm.
yesterday my husband was trying to sign into ESPN on the TV and he had the QR code. He's like, "Can you sign into this?" Because I have the password for all that stuff. And my daughter was talking to me, my son was talking to me, my other son was asking something, and I grabbed my phone and I was like, put my face on it. I'm like, "Here you go. Sign in." I cannot. One, I hate apps. Two, if I get signed out of something, I'm gonna stay signed out of it because I don't like tedious task of signing back into something. Here you
Mhm.
go. Have access to all my things. You sign in, you do it. I cannot take another thing right now. I'm overstimulated and I need a
Mm.
Mhm.
second. That's grace. Some people may see that as, because not giving grace would be what you were saying, Patribus, which is to react emotionally, be like, "Leave me
Yeah.
Mhm.
alone, back off. You
It's
guys
too
are
much
so
right
needy."
now. Nah.
Yes, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
y'all need to give me a minute. It's just like, no, here's the information you need. Here you go. What do you need? One at a time. Take a number. There's one of
Mhm.
me. There's four of you. Pick a number.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
that's like, even that's grace. That's like how I often deal with it. I was like, time out.
Mm.
Pause. Everybody pause. Take a number,
Mhm.
one at a time, because I don't understand and somebody needs to run it back. I have no idea what you want from me.
Mhm. Yeah, I can definitely understand that.
Yeah.
And we learn and grow like from our partners, our friendships, from different relationships.
Mhm.
My husband, he's an administrator in a school system, and he also teaches some different classes for adults outside of secondary education. And one of the classes that he teaches is anger management. So listen, we can't,
A sign
we
from the
don't get
Lord.
into an argument. We don't get into arguments because I can just be going on the tangent about how I feel or what happened in the day or what I didn't like. And he's just like looking at me. He's like, okay. And how did you feel when it happened? I'm like, look, don't start your look. I'm not
Start asking me
playing.
all them
Like,
questions.
I'm serious right now. And he's like, okay, well, just calm down, right? We'll talk about this later. Let's just, we'll come back to it and it's okay. And he's like, just take a deep breath. And I get mad, but I'm like, and he'll be like, we'll come back to it. I'm like, no, I want to talk about it now. He's like, no, we don't need to talk about it now. So it works. That's part of the way that the Lord done bless me, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Blessing me
I always
somebody
say that
that's
Alex is the
calm
calm
and,
to my chaos.
actually certified in teaching anger management because I like it. And the crazy thing, like when I first met him, like this, I'm not gonna say I thought that it was a weakness. I just thought it was different. I was
Mhm.
like, when they said what to you? Like, what did you say? And he was like, nothing. And I'm like, you're not gonna take up for yourself, or, what are you like, what's happening here? You want me to get in, you want me to handle this for you? And he's like, no, like it's okay. Just because they're upset or they said that, that's a reflection of them or how they feel. But I don't let them and put that on me. And
Mm,
for a while, a couple years, it took me a while to understand and really realize that he is so strong because
mhm.
he doesn't get triggered easily. So instead of seeing it as a weakness, I was
Yeah.
like, that man is so strong. He is
Mhm.
so good because he does not get riled up. I'm like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And God has a funny way of giving us everything that we need. We just have
Right.
to
Mhm.
be aware and open to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. So I think that this was an amazing discussion on what
Mhm.
is in leadership. So what would you like to leave with them?
Think, um, well, two things.
Hmm?
So I'm gonna say something about grace first, and
Okay.
then something else I want your listeners to know.
Mm,
But I would say, I want people to know that being graceful or extending grace to others and to ourselves
mhm,
isn't, a sign of weakness.
oh,
Mhm.
But in everything that we do, we should, especially when we're educating or trying to help another person reach their destination,
mhm,
whatever that is, we can lead with grace, but follow with accountability. I think that's important so that the follower, the listener, whoever you're working with can know that what the expectations are, but they can be human enough to make mistakes and
mhm.
we allow them to be safe in that environment to, help them grow, we aren't lowering the standards. So
Yeah.
that's important, for me as an educator to let people know. Lead with grace and follow with accountability. And then the last thing is, I'm really excited about this series that I have going on called Empowered by the Friendly Educator. So I've
Yeah.
talked a lot about how I, with like our preceptor program and
Mhm,
how I help, residents and new grads and new hires and all of those things.
mhm,
But then there's also the staff, like the preceptors. So
Mhm.
I'm planning soon to do like a preceptor workshop because I do this as a educator and the therapists, the students, or whoever have this experience with me, it may not always translate to what's happening at the bedside, you
mhm,
know.
Mhm.
So, in the series, I want to share information that we cover with our staff at our hospital. What we do monthly is called Preceptor Power Hour.
Mhm. Mhm.
We go over different topics like managing the workload, psychological safety, how to communicate effectively, and things like that. And the
mhm,
result has been amazing for how the feedback I receive from the therapists. I'm seeing them grow
mhm,
themselves individually and helping to hold therapists accountable and themselves,
mhm.
and how to communicate better with each other. So I'm really excited about this series, and it'll be able to help educators alike and preceptors. So it's called Empowered by the Friendly Educator. I've been dropping little tips off on my LinkedIn page,
Oh,
weekly series, weekly topics.
yeah.
And today I think the topic was the power feedback,
Mhm.
what that looks like. So it
Yeah,
kind of tied into this topic we're talking about today,
it
which
did.
was grace.
So how can they
So
find you on
that's
LinkedIn?
it. But just on LinkedIn as Pretrevis Ellison, and just follow me for these tips, and it'll be some great things coming out from that.
I would
That
love for you to copyright the phrase that grace is strength wrapped in compassion. Like, that would make me so happy, and I hope that you find a way to incorporate that into the work you're doing, because that's my takeaway from
Thanks.
this. That's my takeaway from this conversation with you, and I think that you're doing such an amazing job at highlighting the value, the importance, and the impact that educators make in the hospital setting, and really how it takes so much more than being a really strong clinician. I
Yeah.
think that you're a very beautiful person inside and out, and I love that you're sharing that light with all of us.
Thank you. I appreciate the great feedback.
That's amazing. And then I was just going to say, in addition to everything that's been stated, is that we've already talked about like showing yourself that same grace, but also making sure that people know that you have the potential to be who you want to be. So
Mm.
lean into that and find your accountability partner. All the tips that Pretrevis gave on her journey and how she's made it to where she is, utilize those tips and be your best self in whatever your role is.
That's right. And
So
call yourself
that's
what
right.
you want to be.
Which one's That's right, and own it. That's right. Thank you for tuning in to Sis Let's Talk Leadership. We look forward to hearing your feedback. Everyone have an amazing night.